The COVID-19 pandemic resulted, as discussed by Professor Hadto and Dr. Joan Castro, in a market downturn, further resulted in less demand for fish and other marine products, leading to less income for Filipino fishers. Threats to our natural assets, particularly the coastal and marine ecosystem, are still being reported from illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing. There's an expected increased pressure on fisheries resources because many people are out of jobs, and usually fisheries is seen as an open resource. This may negate fisheries conservation efforts if not checked. As an environmentalist and development worker, I see the current situation as creating the best opportunity to scale up conservation efforts and right sizing of our fisheries. Let me tell you the story of the fishers in a community in Bulacan province as told to me by a fisher himself. All the fishers know each other since they belong to a bigger community or are relatives, friends, and acquaintances. Almost each day, the fishers do their work tirelessly and providing for their family with a helping hand from their spouse or children in selling of their catch. Soon, some acquired more resources as demand for fish is rising. As the demand for fish and marine products went up, so these fishers' income. They invested in additional gears. Some fishers, however, were contented with what they are earning. With good news of rising incomes, more people went to fishing until resource use conflicts among themselves using different gears or methods became apparent. This resulted in fishers with more gears, resources to earn more, and fishers with less resources to earn less. They also formulated and adopted policies, rules, and guidelines to govern fishing in the different zones. This includes the rule that fishing will be allowed only on certain hours of the day or night, depending on the tide. As for fish pond operators, they cannot use poisons to clean their ponds of predators. They agree to use community power to help clean the ponds of these predators, which are also food fish. When the time comes to clean the pond, the community, family members of the fishers, will be there side by side, feeding with their feet and scooping up any living organism until the pond was clean. After 3 months of doing this, all were happy as each fisher saw their catch increase and earnings stabilize. They were able to discuss their problems openly since there's a culture of listening and empathy with each other's point of view. We call this pakikipagkapwa-tao. When they agreed on what to do, it is because they are helping one another, or the bayanihan spirit. Unfortunately, the resource management initiative only lasted 2 years. By this time, certain traders and capitalists were demanding more fish catches from the fishers since the profits were good and when they sold these products. Slowly, some fishers began breaking the rules, intruding into other fishing zones until nobody was following what they agreed to do. What are the lessons from this story? Fishers have the capacity to resolve conflicts among themselves. The presence of persons with good facilitating and conflict management skills during their dialogues was also a positive factor. All fishers acknowledged that their fishing practice affected others negatively in terms of catch and income before they came up with a resource use management plan. The initiative started to create conflicts again when the outside persons wanted more products from the fishers. They abandoned the resource management practice in exchange for additional income. In the end, many lost their livelihood since slowly the resource was overfished. Local officials did not help since they were indifferent to the fishers. These officials only saw the monetary gain that was being generated by the increased volume and economic returns of fish trading. They finally learned that resource can only give so much if they'd known better earlier. Their livelihoods would have been sustained and their fishing grounds not overfished at present, and they are now reorganizing themselves to a fishers organization. The Disaster Risk Reduction Management Law, for example, promotes a participatory culture of disaster prevention and mitigation, preparedness, response, recovery, and rehabilitation. The many LGUs who use the participatory approach shows that Filipinos have an inherent culture of helping each other, bayanihan, and the caring and empathy for each other, pakikipagkapwa-tao. After a typhoon or disaster and other hardships Filipinos experience, we often see and hear many of our Filipinos giving donations. In the community, the so-called poor are more helpful to their neighbors in need and shares whatever they have. We have seen communities able to distribute fairly the relief goods, even cash. They are able to distribute fairly and equitably because they are transparent. The community that consciously involves its citizens does a very good job. What does it have to do with fisheries? I am confident that when we give them the venues to meaningfully participate in conservation and nature-based solutions and invoke these Filipino values, we will be able to say what their roles and responsibility are individually, as a group, or as a part of a larger governance body. What is important here is that problems are identified and addressed by the community themselves, but may not be sustainable because it lacks other actors. Therefore, in our conservation and protection, there should always be persons with good facilitation and conflict resolution skills to guide the dialogue. Let us also be inclusive, involving men and women of the community, development workers, scientists, local officials, and national officials, or their representatives. Let us also make sure that we adhere and promote the culture of pakikipagkapwa-tao and bayanihan in our efforts among coastal communities. The country has adequate environmental frameworks, policies. What do we do for a blue whale normal? I believe that we should ensure that the NIPAS are linked with local marine protected areas in municipal waters, or create networks of marine protected areas, as well as networks of protected terrestrial areas with MPAs. Currently, many MPAs and protected areas are fragmented or standalone protected ecosystem like a coral reef MPA. They are not connected to each other. To better help increase productivity and resiliency of these MPAs, the strategy is to expand this to cover also other ecosystems like the soft bottom, seagrass, and mangrove ecosystems. It's like building an imaginary corridor that links these ecosystems together, where marine organisms from larva stage to maturity can freely flow with the water currents and swim to find food and shelter in these various ecosystems as they grow. As the country has invested so much effort and resources in conservation and protection of our natural environment or biodiversity, it is just wise to continue conserving and preserving our natural assets with infusion of more government funds and leveraging these to foster partnerships with private entities and donor agencies. Identify and recognize additional MPAs. In my journey with the environment with colleagues, areas with well-managed MPAs seldom experience hunger. Food from fish and various marine organisms, like shellfish and seaweeds, are always available. The fishes with well-managed MPAs, therefore, are not a burden to the government, since most of them have available food, especially during calamities, or seldom experience hunger. More financial support should be given to LGUs or other entities to establish and maintain additional MPAs. Second, effectively address illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing. The biggest threat to our ecosystem, particularly our fisheries, is illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing. This problem seemingly is difficult to address. 5 years after the enactment of Republic Act 10654, increasing the penalties for illegal fishing, IUU fishing still exists. Where are we failing? I believe LGUs need help from civil society, scientists, and other development actors. National government agencies should ensure that their programs also consider in their plans to fight IUUF directly or indirectly. I also believe that we have not fully involved and empowered the men and women fishers for them to be the frontliners in addressing these fisheries issues. As in my story, it starts by discussing resource use conflicts and resolving them. As they become more knowledgeable and confident of their role and responsibility, they will continue to dialogue. Government's role is to support them in their dialogues and confirm that there is indeed a policy on IUUF or fisheries laws that promote the right to fish in municipal waters, and they will be allowed to fish only using legal gears. Third is providing incentives to men and women fishers and community to support conservation protection efforts. During the first talk, Dr. Shell Habito predicted that our economy will have difficulty in recovering in the short term. Consumer demand for products will remain low to modest, including fish products. To help fishers, local value chain should be developed and strengthened. In the past, there were local value chains, this was in the 80s, that made fish available to non-fishing communities, including upland areas. Can government provide adequate credit to support fishers' investment in post-harvest technologies? To support local value chain in areas where internet connectivity or cell phone coverage is good, the government, in partnership with the private sector, can also set up e-commerce platforms. Developing the e-commerce, however, we must make sure that fishers who are unfamiliar with the technology are not marginalized or excluded. To further support conservation and protection efforts, incentives are proposed to be given to fishers. Fish caught with legal fishing gears can be bought at higher prices, or at least these are bought at fair market prices. During the lean months, fishers can be provided jobs in ecosystem restoration, establishing mangrove and beach forest nursery. Access to credit is another incentive to fishers who are using legal gears, who are doing their part in protecting and rehabilitating the various coastal and marine ecosystems. However, barriers should be removed for fishers to access credit. This includes filling up of many forms, like the know your customer requirements. This discourages fishers from accessing credit from banks. Provide displaced fishers with alternative livelihoods. Once IUUF is addressed, there will be displacement of fishers if they have previously used illegal fishing gears. They can also be provided alternative livelihood or provide new fishing gears if the additional fishing effort will be allowed. They can also be hired as community fish warden. I have known many law enforcers who were previously illegal fishers. They usually become effective environmental law enforcers once they are enlightened on the destruction they have caused to the environment. Lastly, recommend that community fish wardens of Batang Dagat be given adequate support. LGU support is limited and may not continue if a new chief executive is elected. There's a pending Banday Dagat bill in Congress. We pray that Congress will pass this proposed law to ensure funds for their job security and incentives like insurance. And now come to my conclusion. In our conservation and protection efforts, we should promote the Filipino positive values of bayanihan and pakikipagkapwa-tao to resolve resource use conflicts and other resource management issues. We should ensure inclusive participation of men and women fishers and other sectors in the management of fisheries. To usher a bluer normal, more funds should be infused to conservation and protection efforts to the country's natural assets. Stimulus packages to fishers can be both grants and credit, where grants are for the protection and restoration of activities, and credit to improve or diversify fishers' livelihood. Displaced fishers from illegal fishing should be beneficiaries of a gear swap or alternative livelihood in post-harvest activities or marketing, among others. Lastly, local community law enforcers should be further supported by the national government and given incentive. I'd like to end my talk by this quote: "As when you think it cannot get worse, it can. And just when you think it cannot get any better, it can."
For me, I think it's one of the effective way of dealing with programs to make it effective. Community organizing, and not only community organizing, it has to have a follow up. It has to have a support of the LGU or the national government. Organizing a community is just easy, but following up, maintaining them, it's for me community organizing or it's a long-term process. It's not just you go there, talk to the people, put up the program, and you go home. No, it's a long-term process. That's why we need more community organizers, trained community organizers, to work on our projects, not only short-term but long-term.
I have mixed views on community organizing by government, if it will be supported by government. When we partner with local government units, they invite us to go to their municipality, to help strengthen the fisherfolk organizations that they organize. But once we go there, talk to the people who are members of the fisherfolk organization, it's not functioning at all. And for sometimes and oftentimes we are misunderstood by the local government. But when we explain to them, look, why we think that yes, you have an organization that is supported to be functional or existing, but it's not really there. It's only the president that is active. There's no members. Then we look deeper, and see that look, your fisheries technician who organized this are doing too many things. Like he's being a technician, he organizes, he gives the person gives education and training and so forth and so on, plus his job in the municipality. And soon after, the local governments realized this and said, okay, you're mandated to organize and strengthen them. We will not anymore organize because no. Yes, because our people are really doing too many things, for the municipality.
Yeah, I think I agree with Mr. Juju regarding, yeah, I think it's more on the local level, not on the national level. And also at the same time, the participation of NGOs or the private sector. That will be more effective. And we experience it that with the private sector participating on a certain project or organizing a certain project, with the support of the local government, it will be a successful program.
Agree with the two speakers that the community work should be given some sort of independence at the local level, because not one size fits all. We, as a scientist also, we are now involved not only with the natural scientists, but also with the social scientists. The approach globally, meaning even with the United Nations SDGs, is to have both the natural scientists and the social scientists look into the problem. Transdisciplinary approach to try to understand what is really in the minds of the people, why they are acting like that and why they are responding like that. We should be considering the cultural, the social, and political aspects in a particular problem. Like, for example, if you consider coastal and fishery people acting that way, meaning not responding to the government and the community organizers' activities for their own good, for the good of the people, you analyze it. Ano ba talaga ang nagiging problema? So, bakit hindi sila sumusunod? Ang tingin ko dyan, poverty. Poverty is the one main reason. Parang kapit sa patalim, kahit ano na lang, kahit masira ang ating environment, ganun ang nangyayari. So, it's not a conclusion yet, but poverty is one of the main reasons why most of the people are doing things that are not supposed to be done with the coastal environment or the fisheries that we have. So may pag-asa pa tayo. Hindi tayo dapat mawala ng pag-asa, especially now that we have the convergence of many people and different agencies working together to analyze and help with this particular problem.
Thank you, Dr. Asansa, that you mentioned that poverty may create these barriers for them to better participate. Actually, we do soft approaches, and usually we don't really talk about our projects if we come to a community. We talk about themselves. We make friends. We try to be real friends to them. So it's a really, the culture is really, who are you? You're from the outside, no? And they've been experiencing these hardships for a long time. So it's really, a soap approach is really getting to know them, not getting them out to say how they feel, what's on their minds. No, it doesn't really work if you call them in a meeting and then their minds are flying out. Oh, where will I get my next meal? Oh, I have to do this thing. My child is sick. No, so we have to set up the proper conditions for them to really express themselves. No, so I think it's no, it's a matter of approach that we should be able to win the hearts by being, by being sincere into being friends with them, looking at really their welfare and not just coming in and out and demanding their time and presence whenever we are there. I think this has been working for us, and I hope other groups are doing this also.
We in government, as well as our partners in private sector, were quick to see an opportunity in the midst of the tragedy. The Department of Agriculture, with the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, facilitated the recognition by the IATF of our fishers together with our farmers as frontliners, building on our initiatives during this time, strengthening local fisheries supply and value chains, and expand IT enhanced local commerce of fisheries and other food. It should also encompass addressing the digital system widening inequality. So our fishers who are not so tech savvy or have poor access to ICT can be supported and capacitated from the supply while protecting that. This should include the blue jobs mentioned earlier. We need to invest on capacitating men and women in fisheries and in fishing households to become better frontliners in our recovery and resilience program. We should improve adaptive capacity of fisherfolk and fisheries. We need immediate job creation, well-connected network of marine protected area, both locally managed and those under the NIPAS, where fishing is prohibited or restricted. Our food security relies on the integrity of our ecosystem. Promote fishing activities with ecological limit or through right sizing efforts. We must set reasonable and enforceable fishing capacity to within natural limits to immediately address the critical threat of our fishing grounds being rapidly overfished. I am happy to note that NEDA and DNR have ideas and action aligned with what we have discussed. It shows that we all share a common goal. These actions, while they are in response to the concurrent crisis, are actually designed to provide a better situation, not just for our fishers, but also for our fragile ecosystems on which we depend for our food, even better than what it was prior to the pandemic. This is what we mean by a bluer normal.
Rest assured that your DABFAR, in its continuous commitment in formulating timely, relevant, and responsive policies and actions, will seriously consider your inputs. We are one with you in ensuring the conservation of our marine biodiversity, taking into account its important role in making our economy more resilient, especially now that the country and the whole world confront this health crisis. The DABFAR will continue to move forward, overcoming obstacles just to protect our oceans and the precious resources from its surface down to its abyss, where the livelihood of our fisherfolk emanates. With that, maraming salamat at mabuhay ang industriya ng pangisdaan.